Clara Martinez, a devoted mother, faces a millionaire CEO she once loved, revealing the secret of their 6-year-old son. The emotional reunion turns their lives upside down in ways no one could have predicted. Before we dive into the story, let's do what Sleepless in Seattle taught us. Share where you're listening from. Comment below. The kitchen fills with the sweet scent of maple syrup as Clara flips another pancake, watching golden bubbles form and pop across its surface. Behind her, Lucas's toy cars zoom across the kitchen table, accompanied by his animated sound effects. The morning sun streams through the window, catching dust motes that dance in its rays and illuminating the framed photo on the counter. Clara and Ethan on their wedding day, both smiling with a brightness that seems impossibly distant now. Clara slides the pancake onto Lucas's waiting plate, careful to arrange it just so. Her 6-year-old son beams up at her, dark eyes sparkling beneath an unruly mop of black hair that refuses to stay combed. He's wearing his favorite Spider-Man pajamas, the ones that are getting slightly too short at the ankles. "More syrup?" Lucas asks, wielding his fork like a conductor's baton. Clara studies his plate, already swimming in amber sweetness. "I think you've got plenty, Mijo." She ruffles his hair, earning a melodramatic groan that makes her smile despite herself. The morning routine wraps around her like a familiar blanket. Comfortable, predictable, safe. Yet, as Clara watches Lucas devour his breakfast, that nagging emptiness creeps in again. Her gaze drifts to the wedding photo, to Ethan's face frozen in that moment of supposed perfection. He looks so young there, before the pressures of his rising tech empire carved those hard lines around his mouth, before success built walls between them brick by bitter brick. Lucas pushes a toy car across the table, making engine noises. Vroom! Crash! He looks up at Clara. "Mom, can we go to the park later? I want to show you my new racetrack design." "After school, maybe." Clara takes a sip of her cooling coffee, trying to ground herself in the present moment. "Did you finish your math homework?" "Almost." Lucas grins, syrup glistening on his chin. "I only have 2 problems left." Clara checks the clock on the microwave. "Better hurry then, the bus will be here soon." As if on cue, the familiar squeal of brakes echoes from the street. Lucas bolts from his chair, nearly knocking over his juice. Clara steadies the glass with practiced ease, watching as he scrambles to collect his backpack and homework. "Love you, Mom," he calls over his shoulder, already halfway to the door. "Love you too, Mijo. Have a good day." Clara follows him to the entryway, making sure he has everything he needs. The door slams behind him with enough force to rattle the windows, and Clara winces. Some battles aren't worth fighting at 7:30 in the morning. She stands at the window, watching until Lucas climbs safely onto the bus. As it pulls away, Clara's reflection stares back at her from the glass. A woman in her early 30s, dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater. She looks tired, she thinks, though her friends insist she hasn't aged a day since college. The house feels suddenly empty, the silence rushing in to fill the spaces where Lucas's laughter had been moments before. Clara moves through the kitchen on autopilot, clearing dishes and wiping sticky syrup from the table. Her hand pauses over the wedding photo, fingertips hovering just above the glass. She should put it away. That's what her therapist would say. Pack up the past, focus on the future. But something always stops her, some stubborn hope or masochistic need to remember. Perhaps it's the way Lucas sometimes resembles his father, especially when he's lost in thought, brow furrowed in concentration over his Legos or homework. Clara's phone buzzes on the counter, startling her from her reverie. It's a news alert, something about Pérez Technology's latest innovation. She swipes it away, without reading, but not before catching a glimpse of Ethan's face in the thumbnail. Older now, distinguished in an expensive suit, looking every inch the billionaire CEO he's become. He probably doesn't even think about her anymore, Clara realizes, with a familiar ache. Why would he? Their worlds couldn't be more different now, his filled with board meetings and product launches, hers centered on school pickups and freelance deadlines. She wonders, not for the first time, what he would say if he knew about Lucas. Would it matter to him? Would he care that their son has his exact same dimple when he smiles, the same determined set to his jaw when he's frustrated? The coffee maker gurgles its last breath, drawing Clara back to reality. She has work to do, clients waiting for designs, bills to pay, She can't afford to get lost in what-ifs and might-have-beens. Not today. Not again. Clara moves to her makeshift office in the corner of the living room, settling into the chair with a fresh cup of coffee. Her desk is organized chaos, sketches and reference materials spread across its surface, her laptop humming softly as it wakes up. A stack of Lucas's drawings sits in one corner, bright crayon masterpieces that never fail to make her smile. The morning light filters through gauzy curtains, casting soft shadows across her workspace. Clara pulls up her current project, a logo design for a local bakery. The owner wants something modern but approachable, whatever that means. Clara's fingers hover over the keyboard as she studies her preliminary sketches. Her phone rings, displaying an unknown number. Clara answers professionally, sliding seamlessly into her work persona. Clara Martinez speaking. Ms. Martinez? This is Sarah from Bloom & Barrel Bakery. I was wondering if we could discuss the logo concepts you sent over? Of course. Clara pulls up the relevant files, but her attention keeps drifting to the headlines scrolling across her laptop screen. Ethan's face appears again, this time accompanying an article about his company's revolutionary new AI platform. She minimizes the window with more force than necessary. The first concept is interesting, Sarah continues, but I'm wondering if we could make it a bit more... Clara makes appropriate noises of agreement, jotting down notes she'll struggle to decipher later. The conversation feels distant, as if she's watching herself participate from somewhere far away. When they finally hang up, Clara slumps in her chair, rubbing her temples. Focus. She needs to focus. But her mind keeps circling back to Ethan, to Lucas, to the weight of secrets she's carried for 6 long years. The guilt sits heavy in her chest. A constant companion she's learned to live with, but never quite ignore. A notification pops up on her calendar. Lucas's parent-teacher conference next week. Another reminder of all the moments Ethan has missed. All the milestones that have passed without his knowledge. Clara stares at the screen until the words blur, wondering if she's done the right thing by keeping them apart. The morning stretches into afternoon, marked by the steady tick of the clock and the quiet hum of her computer. Clara loses herself in work, in the meditative process of creating something from nothing. It's easier than thinking about the past, about the choices that led her here. When lunchtime arrives, Clara hears Lucas's key in the door. He bounds in, backpack bouncing, full of stories about his day. They sit at the kitchen table together, sharing sandwiches and conversation. Clara watches him talk, animated and bright, so full of life and possibility. And then in art class, Lucas continues between bites, we had to draw our families. I drew you and me, Mom, and our house and Rex next door, even though he's not really our dog. Clara's heart tightens. That sounds wonderful, Mijo. Can I see it? Lucas digs through his backpack, pulling out a slightly crumpled piece of paper. The drawing is simple but sweet. 2 stick figures holding hands, standing beside a house with a comically large door. A brown blob that must be Rex occupies one corner. It's beautiful, Clara says, meaning it. But she can't help noticing the space where a father should be, the absence that Lucas has learned to accept without question. Her son has never asked about Ethan, never wondered aloud why other kids have dads, and he doesn't. Sometimes Clara thinks that makes it worse. Can I hang it on the fridge? Lucas asks, already sliding off his chair. Of course. Clara watches as he carefully arranges the drawing among its companions. Test papers marked with gold stars, previous artistic masterpieces, a calendar filled with their daily routines. The refrigerator has become a chronicle of their life together, a testament to all they've shared and all they've missed. Lucas returns to his lunch, chattering about his upcoming school project. Clara listens, offering appropriate responses, but her mind wanders to the future. How long can she keep this up? At what point does protection become deception? The questions have no easy answers, but they press against her consciousness with increasing urgency. The afternoon sun slants through the windows, painting golden stripes across the kitchen floor. Lucas's voice fills the room with stories of recess adventures and classroom triumphs, but Clara catches herself searching his features for echoes of Ethan. They're there in the determined set of his jaw, the way his eyebrows draw together when he's thinking hard about something. She makes a silent promise to herself, not for the first time, Someday, when the moment is right, she'll tell Lucas the truth. Someday, she'll find the courage to reach out to Ethan. But for now, she lets the warmth of the afternoon wrap around them, holding this moment of simple happiness close to her heart. The rest of the day passes in a blur of client calls and design revisions. Clara works while Lucas does his homework at the kitchen table, their quiet concentration punctuated by occasional questions about math problems or color choices. It's their routine, comfortable and familiar, but today it feels somehow fragile, as if the universe is holding its breath. Evening brings with it the familiar bustle of dinner preparation, homework checking, and bedtime routines. As Clara tucks Lucas into bed, he asks for his favorite story, the one about the brave knight who fights dragons to protect his kingdom. She tells it with all the usual dramatic flourishes, watching his eyes grow heavy with sleep. "Mom?" Lucas murmurs, already half dreaming. "Yes, mijo? I love you. I love you too, mi corazón." Clara kisses his forehead, breathing in the clean scent of his shampoo. Sweet dreams. She lingers in the doorway, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. The nightlight casts soft shadows on the wall, and for a moment, Clara feels the weight of every decision she's ever made pressing down on her shoulders. The past 6 years stretch behind her like a long road, marked by moments of joy and doubt, love and fear. Later, alone in her living room, Clara sits with her laptop open to a blank document. The cursor blinks steadily, waiting. Outside, the first hints of New Year's Eve celebrations drift through the neighborhood. Distant music, occasional laughter, the pop of early fireworks. The wedding photo catches her eye again, and this time Clara doesn't look away. She studies Ethan's face, remembering the man he was before success changed him, before their dreams grew in opposite directions. She thinks about Lucas, sleeping peacefully upstairs, unaware of the history he carries in his DNA. The decision crystallizes slowly, like frost spreading across a window pane. Clara opens a new document and begins to type. "Dear Ethan." The words come slowly at first, then faster, spilling onto the screen like water breaking through a dam. Clara writes about Lucas, his first steps, his laugh, his love of cars and dragons and chocolate chip pancakes. She writes about guilt and fear, about protection that might have become punishment. She writes about hope. When she finishes, Clara reads the letter 3 times before printing it. Her hands shake slightly as she folds the paper, sliding it into an envelope along with a recent photo of Lucas at his school's science fair. Their son stands proud beside his project, grinning with familiar dimples, his dark eyes bright with achievement. The address is easy to find. Ethan's name appears regularly in business news, and Pérez Technologies' headquarters hasn't changed in years. Clara writes it carefully on the envelope, each letter precise and deliberate. The clock strikes midnight somewhere in the distance, and fireworks explode across the sky in brilliant bursts of color. Clara stands, letter in hand, and walks to the front door. The night air is cool on her face as she steps outside, crickets chirping their endless symphony in the darkness. The mailbox stands at the end of the driveway, theme line, a silent sentinel waiting to carry her message into an uncertain future. Her footsteps crunch on the gravel as she approaches. The metal handle is cold beneath her fingers as she pulls it open. For a moment, Clara hesitates, the envelope hovering between her hand and the darkness within. 6 years of secrets balance on this precipice, waiting for her decision. The fireworks continue overhead, painting the sky in ephemeral blooms of light and color. Clara takes a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle around her shoulders. Then, with a quiet determination, she slips the envelope into the mailbox and closes the lid. The sound echoes in the quiet night, final and irreversible. Clara stands there for a long moment, watching as more fireworks burst above her, their light reflecting off the mailbox's metal surface. Each explosion feels like punctuation to the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. She turns back toward the house, toward where Lucas sleeps peacefully, unaware that his world is about to change. The future stretches before her, unknown and slightly terrifying, but Clara feels lighter somehow. The truth, once released, has its own kind of freedom. Inside, the house is quiet except for the distant pop of fireworks and the steady tick of the kitchen clock. Clara moves through the familiar spaces, turning off lights, checking locks, following the routine that anchors her days. But tonight, everything feels different. The air itself seems charged with possibility. As she passes the wedding photo on her way upstairs, Clara pauses. For the first time in years, she picks it up, studying the frozen smiles and remembered hopes. Then, carefully, she opens a drawer and places the frame inside. Whatever comes next, it won't be found in the past. Clara climbs the stairs slowly, each step carrying her toward whatever future she set in motion. She pauses at Lucas's door, listening to his soft breathing, steady and sure in the darkness. Tomorrow will come with its own challenges, its own fears and hopes. But for now, in this moment between what was and what will be, Clara finds a quiet peace in knowing she's finally taken the first step toward truth. The new year arrives in a cascade of light and sound, marking the end of secrets and the beginning of something new. Clara lies awake in her bed, listening to the celebrations fade into silence, wondering what changes the morning will bring. The letter is gone now, carrying her words and her hopes into the unknown. There's no turning back, only forward, into whatever future awaits them all. Ethan Pérez stands at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, 40 stories above San Francisco's financial district. The letter trembles in his hands, its cream-colored paper stark against his dark suit. Behind him, his minimalist workspace stretches in shades of chrome and glass, a testament to precise control, to calculated decisions. But there's nothing controlled about the way his heart pounds against his ribs. Lucas is your son. The words blur before his eyes. He blinks, trying to bring them back into focus, but they swim across the page like ink in water. A photo slips from between the pages, falling to the polished concrete floor. Ethan stares at it for a long moment before bending to pick it up. A boy stands proudly beside a science fair project, his grin bright and familiar. Ethan's own dimples stare back at him from a smaller face, those same dark eyes that used to look back at him from childhood mirrors. The resemblance hits him like a physical blow, forcing him back a step. "Sir?" His assistant's voice crackles through the intercom. The board is waiting in conference room A. Ethan's fingers tighten on the photo's edges. "Cancel it," he says, his voice rough. "Cancel everything today." "But sir, the quarterly projections. I said cancel it." The words come out sharper than intended. Ethan takes a breath, steadying himself. "Family emergency." Family. The word feels foreign on his tongue, like a language he once knew but has long forgotten. He sinks into his ergonomic chair, spreading the letter across his pristine desk. Clara's handwriting hasn't changed, still neat and precise, each letter carefully formed. He remembers watching her sketch logos in their tiny apartment, back when his company was just a dream and their love felt infinite. The rage comes in waves, crashing against his careful composure. 6 years. She kept this from him for 6 years. Every milestone, every first step, every birthday, gone, stolen, buried in time, he can never get back. His hands curl into fists on the desk. But beneath the anger, something else stirs. Guilt slithers through his chest as he remembers their last real conversation. The way Clara's voice cracked when she told him she was leaving, how he'd barely looked up from his laptop. "You're never really here anymore, Ethan. Even when you're home, you're somewhere else." The San Francisco fog rolls past his window, shrouding the city in gray. Ethan pulls up his browser, fingers moving automatically across the keyboard. Clara's social media accounts are mostly private, but there are enough public photos to piece together a timeline. Lucas at various school events, at the park, celebrating birthdays. In each one, his smile grows more familiar, more undeniably a reflection of Ethan's own. A particular photo catches his eye, Lucas in a Spider-Man costume, striking a heroic pose. The caption mentions his 5th birthday. Ethan was probably in a board meeting that day, discussing market projections while his son blew out candles he didn't even know existed. The letter ends with an invitation. Greenleaf Park, any Saturday afternoon. He likes to build racetracks in the sand. Sometimes I think he has your mind for engineering. Ethan pushes back from his desk, pacing the length of his office. The city spreads out below him, a maze of possibilities and consequences. He's built an empire on careful calculations, on weighing risks against rewards. But this defies every algorithm, every carefully constructed framework of his life. His phone buzzes with meeting reminders and urgent emails, each one suddenly hollow against the weight of what he's lost, what he's missed. what he might still have a chance to build if he can find the courage to try. The fog continues its slow dance across the bay, and Ethan watches it until the light begins to fade. In the gathering dusk, his reflection overlaps with the city lights, and for the first time in years, he really looks at himself, at what he's become, at what he might still be. When he finally moves, it's with purpose. He pulls out his phone, opens a new message to Clara's number, still memorized after all these years. His fingers hover over the keyboard as the cursor blinks, waiting. Let's meet. Greenleaf Park, 3 p.m., Saturday. He hits send before he can second-guess himself, before the careful walls he's built can talk him out of it. The message marks as delivered, then read. 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. Ethan holds his breath, watching the screen like it holds the answers to questions he's only now learning to ask. The response comes just as he's about to give up hope. Okay, 1 word. 4 letters. A door creaking open on 6 years of silence. Ethan sets the phone down carefully like it might shatter. He picks up the photo again, studying his son's face in the fading light. The boy's project appears to be some kind of mechanical design, gears and levers arranged with careful precision. Your mind for engineering, Clara had written. He traces the edge of the photo with his thumb, wondering what other pieces of himself might live in this child he's never met. The night deepens around him, but Ethan doesn't leave his office. Instead, he sits with the letter, with the photo, with 6 years of moments he can never reclaim. Tomorrow, he'll have to be CEO again, have to maintain the careful facade he's spent years perfecting. But tonight, he allows himself to feel everything he's been running from, the regret, the anger, the crushing weight of time lost. And somewhere in that tangle of emotions, a tiny spark of hope takes root, fragile but persistent as the first light of dawn. Clara stares at Ethan's message until her phone screen dims, then goes dark. She's sitting at her kitchen table, the remains of Lucas's breakfast still scattered across its surface. The morning sun streams through the window, catching on the syrup bottle, casting amber shadows across the wood. Her hands shake slightly as she sets the phone down. After all the scenarios she'd imagined, angry calls, legal threats, stony silence, this simple message feels surreal. 3 words that could reshape their entire world. Let's meet. Saturday. Mom? Lucas's voice carries from the living room, where he's supposed to be getting ready for school. Have you seen my blue folder? Check your backpack, Mijo. Clara's voice comes out steadier than she feels. She takes a deep breath, trying to ground herself in the familiar rhythm of their morning routine. But everything feels different now, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. She picks up her phone again, opens her contacts. Sophia answers on the second ring, her voice warm and familiar. Hey, girl. Everything okay? He wants to meet. The words tumble out before Clara can arrange them more carefully. At Greenleaf Park, this Saturday. There's a pause on the other end of the line, then Sophia's voice returns, gentle but firm. That's good, right? This is what you wanted when you sent the letter. I know, but... Clara watches Lucas dash past the kitchen doorway, one shoe on, the other in his hand. What if it's a mistake? What if he's angry? What if? Clara, Sophia cuts through her spiral of what-ifs. You don't have to fix everything with him. Just let him meet his son. That's all this needs to be right now. The simple wisdom of it settles something in Clara's chest. You're right. I know you're right. Of course I am. Sophia's smile is audible through the phone. Glens, want me to come over tonight? We can strategize. Maybe open that bottle of wine you've been saving. Mom? Lucas appears in the doorway, both shoes finally on. We're going to be late. Rain check? Clara says to Sophia. I need to. Go be super mom. Call me after, okay? Clara ends the call, gathering her keys and Lucas's lunchbox. The morning proceeds as usual, the rush to the bus stop, the quick hug goodbye, the quiet drive home. But everything feels heightened, like the world has shifted slightly on its axis. She responds to Ethan's message with a single word. Okay. Then she sets her phone aside and opens her laptop, determined to lose herself in work. But her cursor hovers over the same design elements for hours, her mind replaying every possible version of Saturday's meeting. The sun tracks across the sky, marking time and shadows across her desk. Clara tries to focus on client deadlines, on grocery lists, on anything but the countdown to Saturday, but her thoughts keep circling back to Ethan, to the weight of secrets finally spoken, to the uncertain future stretching out before them all. Saturday morning dawns clear and crisp, the January air sharp with possibility. Clara stands in Lucas's doorway, watching him sleep. His dark hair is tousled against the pillow, one arm wrapped around his favorite stuffed dragon. In sleep, the resemblance to Ethan is even more striking, the same slight furrow between his brows, the same way his fingers curl slightly inward. "Mijo," she calls softly, heart aching with the weight of what's to come. "Time to wake up." Lucas stirs, blinking owlishly in the morning light. "Is it park day?" "Yes, mi amor." Clara sits on the edge of his bed, smoothing his wild hair. "And today is special. Remember what I told you?" Lucas sits up, suddenly more alert. "We're meeting someone important?" Clara nods, choosing her words carefully. "Yes, we're meeting your father." The words hang in the air between them, delicate as soap bubbles. Lucas's eyes widen, and Clara watches emotions flicker across his face. Curiosity, excitement, uncertainty. "Is he nice?" Lucas asks, clutching his dragon closer. "Will he play with me?" Clara's throat tightens. "I hope so, Mido. I think he'll want to get to know you very much." Lucas nods solemnly, processing this information with the peculiar gravity that children sometimes possess. "Can I wear my Spider-Man shirt?" A laugh escapes Clara, relief mixing with tenderness. "Of course you can." The morning unfolds in a blur of activity, breakfast, getting dressed, Lucas asking questions that grow increasingly complex. Why hasn't he visited before? Does he like Legos? Will he come to my school play? Clara answers as honestly as she can, navigating the delicate space between truth and protection. "Sometimes grown-ups make complicated decisions," she explains as she helps Lucas tie his shoes. "But he wants to meet you now, and that's what matters." They arrive at Greenleaf Park early, the playground still quiet in the morning light. Lucas runs ahead to the sandbox, already planning his latest racetrack design. Clara settles on a nearby bench, her hands clasped tightly in her lap to stop their trembling. The minutes tick by with excruciating slowness. Clara watches other families arrive, mothers pushing strollers, fathers helping children on the swings. Each approaching figure makes her heart stutter until she realizes it's not him. Then she sees him. Ethan walks toward them with the same purposeful stride she remembers, his tall figure drawing eyes even in casual clothes. He's traded his usual suit for dark jeans and a sweater, but there's no disguising the authority in his bearing, the careful control in every movement. Clara stands, her legs unsteady. Lucas is still absorbed in his sand construction, unaware that his world is about to shift on its axis. Ethan stops a few feet away, his eyes moving from Clara to Lucas and back again. The silence stretches between them, heavy with unspoken words. "Clara." His voice is rougher than she remembers. "Ethan." She manages to keep her voice steady. "Thank you for coming." His jaw tightens. "Did you think I wouldn't?" The question carries years of accumulated hurt, of assumptions made and trust broken. Clara looks away, unable to hold his gaze. "I didn't know what to think." Lucas chooses that moment to look up, noticing the stranger standing with his mother. He rises from the sandbox, brushing sand from his knees, and approaches with cautious curiosity. "Lucas," Clara says softly, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "This is your father, Ethan." Ethan crouches down, bringing himself to Lucas's level. His hands tremble slightly as he offers one to shake. "Hello, Lucas." Lucas studies him with serious eyes, Ethan's eyes, before accepting the handshake. "Hi, do you want to see my racetrack? I'm making the turns bigger so the cars go faster." Something breaks open in Ethan's expression. "I'd like that very much." They move to the sandbox together, Lucas already launching into a detailed explanation of his design principles. Clara watches them, her heart a tangle of emotions she can't quite name. Ethan looks up at her, his expression unreadable. "Why?" The question is quiet but intense. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Not now," Clara murmurs, nodding toward Lucas. "He doesn't need to hear this." Ethan's jaw clenches, but he nods. His attention returns to Lucas, who's demonstrating the optimal angle for a particularly challenging turn. Clara watches them together, seeing all the ways they mirror each other in gesture and expression. The morning stretches on, a strange dance of careful conversations and cautious connections. Lucas warms to Ethan quickly, showing off his engineering prowess with growing enthusiasm. Ethan matches his energy, offering suggestions and praise in equal measure. But beneath the surface, tension simmers. Every time Ethan looks at Clara, she sees the questions burning in his eyes. Why wasn't I told? Why wasn't I given a chance? The weight of 6 years of secrets presses down on them both. Mom, can we get ice cream? Lucas asks, breaking through the heavy atmosphere. Please? Clara hesitates, glancing at Ethan. He meets her gaze, and for a moment, she sees past the hurt to something softer, more vulnerable. There's a shop around the corner, he offers. If it's okay with your mother. Lucas turns pleading eyes on Clara. She nods, unable to deny him this small joy in the midst of such enormous change. They walk together, Lucas between them, chattering about his favorite flavors. The space between Clara and Ethan feels charged, like the air before a storm. There are so many words unsaid, so many explanations needed. But for now, they follow their son's lead, stepping carefully into this new territory they must learn to navigate together. The ice cream shop is busy with weekend customers. Lucas presses his face against the glass display, eyes wide at the array of choices. Ethan stands behind him, one hand hovering near Lucas's shoulder as if unsure of his right to offer physical comfort. Clara watches them, her throat tight with emotion. This is what she's feared and hoped for in equal measure. Seeing them together, watching bonds begin to form. It's beautiful and terrifying, like watching a butterfly emerge from its chrysalis, necessary but fraught with danger. As Lucas enjoys his ice cream, chocolate smeared across his chin, Ethan's questions continue to burn in the space between them. Clara knows they can't avoid the conversation forever. Soon, they'll have to face the past, have to navigate the thorny path between hurt and healing. But for now, in this moment, they're just three people sharing ice cream on a Saturday afternoon. The future, with all its complications and possibilities, can wait a little longer. Steam rises from Clara's untouched coffee, curling into the space between her and Ethan. The cafe bustles around them, but their corner table feels suspended in its own pocket of time, isolated from the cheerful morning chatter and clinking silverware. Ethan sits across from her, his fingers drumming an uneven rhythm on the ceramic mug. He's traded his usual business attire for dark jeans and a gray sweater that makes him look almost approachable, almost like the man she used to know. But his jaw remains set in that familiar tight line, and his eyes carry the weight of unspoken accusations. Why didn't you tell me about Lucas? The question drops between them like a stone. Why didn't you let me in? Clara's hands tremble as she wraps them around her cooling coffee. The truth she's carried for 6 years threatens to choke her, but she forces the words out anyway. I thought. Her voice cracks, and she starts again. I thought you wouldn't want to be involved. You were so focused on the company, on building your empire. Every time I tried to talk to you about starting a family, you changed the subject. That wasn't your decision to make. Ethan's words are sharp, but there's pain underneath them. You didn't even give me a chance. You were already gone, Ethan. Not physically, maybe, but emotionally? Clara's laugh holds no humor. You spent more time with your investors than you did with me. When was the last time we had dinner together before the divorce? When was the last time you asked me about my day and actually listened to the answer? The accusation hangs in the air between them. Ethan's fingers still on his mug, and something shifts in his expression. I was trying to build something for us, he says quietly. I thought if I could just make it work, if I could prove myself. I never needed you to prove anything. Clara's voice softens. I just needed you to be there. Silence settles over their table again, heavy with shared regret. Clara watches as Ethan's shoulders slump slightly, the carefully maintained facade of the successful CEO cracking around the edges. I didn't know how to reach out after we separated, he admits. I kept thinking about calling, about trying to fix things, but it felt like there was this wall between us. And then months turned into years, and the wall just got higher. Clara nods, understanding more than she wants to. I was so afraid, she whispers. Afraid you'd reject Lucas, afraid you'd try to take him away, afraid of disrupting the life we'd built. It was easier to keep the secret than face the possibility of losing him. I would never, Ethan starts, then stops himself. I understand why you thought that. I wasn't the most reliable person back then. The admission costs him something. Clara can see it in the way his shoulders tense, in the slight tremor of his hand as he lifts his coffee to his lips, For the first time, she glimpses the vulnerability beneath his polished exterior. "I was lonely," she says, the words spilling out before she can stop them. "So lonely, Ethan. You were building your dream, and I was just there, watching from the sidelines, trying to hold on to something that was slipping away." Ethan's eyes meet hers, and the raw emotion she sees there makes her breath catch. "I was lonely too," he says softly. "I thought if I could just work harder, be more successful, I could fix everything. But the more I achieved, the more isolated I felt." Clara blinks back unexpected tears. "We were both lost, weren't we?" "Yeah." Ethan's smile is sad but genuine. "We were." The morning light shifts through the cafe windows, painting golden stripes across their table. Clara watches as Ethan absently traces one with his finger, his expression thoughtful. "I want to be part of his life," he says finally, his voice firm despite the uncertainty in his eyes. "I can't change the past 6 years, but I can be here now. I'll do whatever it takes to build something real with him." The sincerity in his words catches Clara off guard. She studies his face, searching for any trace of the emotional distance that had defined their marriage. Instead, she finds only determination and a vulnerability that makes her heart ache. "It won't be easy," she warns. "Lucas, he's sensitive. He feels things deeply. We need to be careful about how we do this." Ethan nods, his expression serious. "I know. I don't expect everything to be perfect right away, but I want to try. I need to try." Clara takes a deep breath, feeling the weight of years of secrets and fears beginning to lift. "Okay," she says quietly, "we'll try." The word hangs between them like a bridge, fragile but hopeful. Ethan's relief is visible in the way his shoulders relax, in the ghost of a smile that tugs at his lips. "Thank you," he says, and Clara knows he means for more than just this moment. They spend the next hour talking about Lucas, his love of science and cars, his infectious laugh, the way his brow furrows when he's concentrating. With each story, each shared smile, the tension between them eases slightly. They're not friends, not yet, but they're no longer adversaries either. As they prepare to leave, Ethan pauses, his hand hovering over his coat. "I was thinking, Lucas's school art show is next week. Would it be okay if I came?" Clara hesitates for just a moment before nodding. "He'd like that. He has a piece about space that he's really proud of." "Space, huh?" Ethan's smile reaches his eyes this time. That's really something." They step out into the crisp morning air, their breaths forming small clouds in the cold. Clara pulls her coat tighter around herself, watching as Ethan checks his phone for messages. "I'll text you the details about the art show," she says. "Thanks." Ethan looks up, his expression softening. "For everything, Clara. For giving me this chance." She nods, not trusting herself to speak. They part ways without another word, but something has shifted between them. A door that was locked for 6 years has finally begun to open. The following week arrives too quickly and not quickly enough. Clara stands in the crowded school hallway, watching as Lucas excitedly points out his artwork to his classmates. The space drawing hangs proudly on the wall, a riot of colors and imagination that makes her smile despite her nerves. When Ethan appears at the end of the hallway, Clara's breath catches. He looks almost out of place in his casual clothes, surrounded by construction paper art and children's laughter. But as he approaches, she sees the effort he's making to blend in, to be present in this moment. Lucas notices him before Clara can say anything. "Mom," he whispers, tugging at her sleeve. Is that him?" Clara nods, her heart racing. "Yes, Mijo, that's your dad. He wanted to see your artwork." Ethan reaches them, his smile tentative but genuine. "Hi, Lucas," he says softly, bending down to the boy's level. "Your mom tells me you're quite the artist. Would you show me your drawing?" Lucas glances at Clara, who gives him an encouraging nod. Then, slowly at first, but with growing enthusiasm, he begins to explain his space scene to Ethan. The different planets he included, the shooting stars, the alien spaceship hidden in the corner. Clara watches them together, noting the matching dimples in their cheeks when they smile, the similar way they tilt their heads when concentrating. The sight brings tears to her eyes, but she blinks them away quickly. After the art show, they find themselves at a nearby cafe, the same one where Clara and Ethan had their conversation the week before. Lucas sits between them, happily devouring a chocolate chip cookie while they discuss his other school projects. I have a science fair coming up, Lucas announces, brushing crumbs from his shirt. We're doing experiments with plants. Ethan's eyes light up. Really? What kind of experiments? As Lucas launches into an explanation of his project, Clara catches Ethan's eye over their son's head. The gratitude in his expression makes her throat tight. Later, after Lucas has gone to the bathroom, Ethan turns to Clara. Thank you for letting me be here today, she nods, fiddling with her napkin. He seems happy with you here. I want to do this right, Ethan says quietly, whatever that means. Weekend visits, school events, whatever works best for him, for both of you. Clara studies him for a moment, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. We can start small, she agrees. Build up to more regular visits once he's comfortable. I can work around your schedule, Ethan adds quickly. I know I have a lot of meetings, but this is more important. I'll make it work. Before Clara can respond, Lucas returns, full of energy and questions about when they can all meet again. As they work out the details of future visits, Clara feels a subtle shift in the air between them. They're not a traditional family, and maybe they never will be, but they're finding their way toward something new, something that might just work. The afternoon sun slants through the cafe windows, painting everything in warm gold. Clara watches as Ethan helps Lucas clean chocolate from his fingers as they share quiet laughs over silly jokes. It's not perfect, but it's a beginning, and sometimes she thinks that's enough. Later that evening, after Lucas has gone to bed full of stories about his day, Clara sits alone in her living room. The house feels different somehow. Not empty exactly, but full of possibilities she hadn't allowed herself to consider before. She picks up her phone, typing out a quick message to Ethan about Lucas's upcoming science fair. His response comes almost immediately. I'll be there. Thank you, Clara, for everything. Clara sets the phone down, letting out a long breath. The future stretches before them, uncertain but hopeful. They have a long way to go. Years of missed moments to navigate, but for the first time in 6 years, she feels like they might actually find their way through it. Outside, the spring evening settles over the neighborhood like a gentle blanket. Clara can hear the distant sound of children playing, of life moving forward. She thinks about the cafe conversations, about Ethan's promise to be present, about Lucas's smile when he showed his father his artwork. It's not the ending she once imagined for their story, but maybe it's not an ending at all. Maybe it's just the beginning of something different, something that could be, in its own way, even better than what they had before. Clara closes her eyes, letting the quiet of the evening wash over her. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, its own moments of doubt and hope. But for now, in this moment of peace between what was and what could be, she allows herself to believe that they've taken the first step toward healing. Not just for Lucas, but for all of them. Clara shifts in the hard plastic chair, hyper-aware of Ethan's presence beside her in the school auditorium. The familiar scent of his cologne, sandalwood and something crisp she can't name, brings back memories she'd rather forget. On stage, Lucas delivers his lines with perfect timing, his dragon costume's tail swishing as he moves. Her heart swells with pride, even as her shoulders remain tense. He's really good, Ethan whispers, leaning slightly closer. Natural performer. Clara nods, keeping her eyes fixed on the stage. He's been practicing for weeks. The space between them feels charged, like the air before a storm. They're trying this new approach, showing up together at school events, sharing meals, building some semblance of normal family life for Lucas's sake. But sitting here, pretending everything is fine while 6 years of unspoken words hang between them, makes Clara's skin prickle. Lucas roars his final line, earning scattered laughter from the audience. Clara catches herself smiling, remembering how he practiced that roar in their kitchen every morning for the past month, making the dishes rattle. Beside her, Ethan chuckles softly. When the play ends, they wait in the crowded hallway outside the auditorium. Parents and children mill about, voices echoing off the cinder block walls. Clara spots Lucas weaving through the crowd, still in his dragon costume, face flushed with excitement. "Mom, Dad!" He crashes into them, and Clara steadies him with practiced ease. "Did you see when I scared George? Was I scary enough?" "Terrifying," Ethan assures him, ruffling Lucas's hair. "Best dragon I've ever seen." Clara watches them interact, noting how Lucas beams at his father's praise. It should make her happy, seeing them bond. Instead, her chest tightens with a complicated mix of emotions she can't quite name. How about dinner? Ethan suggests. To celebrate our talented dragon? Lucas bounces on his toes. Can we go to Buddy's? They have the best milkshakes. Clara hesitates. Buddy's is a casual family restaurant. Nothing fancy. Exactly the kind of place where they might look like a normal family having a normal dinner. The thought makes her throat close up. Buddy's sounds perfect, she manages, forcing a smile. The restaurant is busy with the dinner rush, full of families and the clatter of plates. They slide into a vinyl booth, Lucas between them, still chattering about the play. Clara studies her menu without really seeing it, too aware of Ethan's presence across the table. So, Lucas, Ethan says, besides being a fearsome dragon, what else have you been up to at school? Lucas launches into a detailed explanation of his science project about volcanoes. Clara notices how Ethan leans in, asking thoughtful questions, showing genuine interest. It's everything she should want, Ethan making an effort, trying to be present in their son's life. But when Lucas mentions having trouble with his math homework, Ethan's expression shifts. You know, if you're struggling with math, maybe we should look into getting you a tutor. I know some excellent. He's doing fine. Clara cuts in, her voice sharper than intended. We work on it together every afternoon. Ethan's jaw tightens. I'm just saying, with the right resources... He doesn't need expensive tutors, Ethan. He needs patience and encouragement. Lucas shrinks in his seat, pushing a French fry around his plate. Clara immediately regrets letting her irritation show. This is exactly what they're supposed to be avoiding. Hey, Mijo, why don't you go check out the arcade? She pulls a few dollars from her wallet, just for a little while. Once Lucas bounds off toward the blinking lights and electronic music, the tension at the table thickens. Ethan takes a deliberate sip of his water. I wasn't criticizing your parenting, Clara. I just want to help. By throwing money at every little challenge, that's always been your solution, hasn't it? The words escape before she can stop them, laden with old hurts. Ethan's expression hardens. That's not fair. I'm trying here, but you make it damn difficult to be involved when you act like every suggestion I make is an attack. Clara presses her fingertips to her temples. You've been back in his life for what, a month? And suddenly you think you know what's best for him? He's my son, too. Ethan's voice is low, controlled, but she hears the anger simmering beneath. Or did you forget that during the 6 years you kept him from me? The accusation hits like a physical blow. Clara watches Lucas at the arcade, his face lit by the glow of the game screen, blissfully unaware of the tension brewing at their table. She'd promised herself she would try harder, do better. But here they are, falling into the same patterns. We should go, she says finally. It's getting late and Lucas has school tomorrow. The drive home is quiet, broken only by Lucas's occasional yawns from the back seat. Clara grips the steering wheel too tightly, her knuckles white. In her rearview mirror, she watches Ethan's sleek black Tesla following them home. This is their new normal. Carefully orchestrated meetings, forced smiles, and conversations that feel like walking through a minefield. Clara wonders if they're fooling anyone, least of all themselves. The next few weeks follow a similar pattern. They attend parent-teacher conferences together, sitting stiffly side by side while Lucas's teacher praises his creativity and suggests ways to help with his organization skills. They share weekend outings to the park, where Lucas shows off his elaborate racetrack designs drawn in chalk on the pavement. Each interaction feels like a performance, both of them trying so hard to get it right that everything comes out wrong. One Saturday morning, Clara opens her email to find a message from Ethan about Lucas's upcoming birthday. Her coffee grows cold beside her laptop as she reads his suggestions for an elaborate celebration. Catering, entertainment, a guest list that includes half his company's executive board. No, she mutters, hitting reply with more force than necessary. Her fingers fly across the keyboard, composing a response that explains why a smaller, more intimate celebration would be better for Lucas. She remembers his last birthday party, how overwhelmed he got with just his classmates there. The thought of Ethan turning it into some corporate networking event makes her blood boil. Ethan's reply comes within minutes. We need to discuss this in person. Clara stares at the screen, her reflection ghostly in its blue light. She knows this conversation won't end well, but she agrees to meet him that afternoon while Lucas is at a friend's house. The doorbell rings at exactly 3 o'clock. Ethan's always been punctual, at least. Clara opens the door to find him in his usual weekend attire, designer jeans and a cashmere sweater that probably costs more than her monthly rent. "Before you start," he says, stepping inside, "just hear me out about the party." Clara leads him to the living room, where toys are scattered across the floor despite her best efforts to keep things tidy. She notices Ethan's eyes scanning the room, taking in the worn furniture, the stack of bills on the coffee table, the crayon marks on the wall that won't quite scrub clean. "Lucas doesn't need some extravagant party," she begins, but Ethan cuts her off. "Why are you so resistant to letting me do something special for him? He's turning 7, Clara. 7 years I've missed, and you're still trying to control every aspect of his life. I'm trying to protect him." The words burst out, echoing in the small room. "He's not some project you can throw money at to make up for lost time. He's a child, our child, and he needs stability, not some flashy party designed to impress your business associates." Ethan paces the room, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. "You don't get to decide unilaterally what he needs anymore. That's what got us into this mess in the first place." "This mess?" Clara laughs, but there's no humor in it. "You mean the mess where you were so caught up in building your precious company that you couldn't be bothered to notice your marriage falling apart? That mess? Don't put this all on me. You were the one who left, who took our son and disappeared without." A small gasp from the hallway stops them both cold. Lucas stands there in his Spider-Man pajamas, eyes wide and uncertain. Clara's heart drops to her stomach. She thought he was still at his friend's house. "Why are you fighting?" His voice is small, fragile. Clara moves toward him automatically, but Lucas steps back. "Mijo, we're not fighting. We're just—" "Yes, you are." Lucas's lower lip trembles. "You're always fighting. Every time Dad comes over, you fight." Ethan remains frozen in place, his face a mask of guilt and regret. Clara feels sick, realizing how their arguing must look through their son's eyes. "Lucas," Ethan starts, but Lucas cuts him off. "Are you going to keep fighting forever?" The question hangs in the air like smoke, choking them with its innocence and accuracy. Clara meets Ethan's eyes across the room, seeing her own pain reflected there. They've been so caught up in their own hurt, their own righteousness, that they've lost sight of what matters most. Lucas stands between them, literally and figuratively, waiting for an answer neither of them knows how to give. The silence stretches, broken only by the tick of the kitchen clock and the distant sound of a lawnmower outside. Clara moves first, crossing to Lucas and kneeling before him. She doesn't try to hug him, sensing he needs space. "No, mijo, we're not going to keep fighting forever. We're going to do better." She looks up at Ethan, a silent plea in her eyes. He joins them, crouching down to Lucas's level. "Your mom's right," he says softly. "We've been acting like, well, not like grown-ups should act, and we're sorry." Lucas studies them both, his dark eyes serious. "Promise?" Clara feels the weight of that single word, understanding that this moment could define their future as a family, whatever form that family might take. "We promise," she says, meaning it with every fiber of her being. She glances at Ethan again, seeing the same commitment in his expression. Lucas nods slowly, some of the tension leaving his small shoulders. "Can we watch a movie together? All of us?" It's such a simple request, yet it feels monumental. Clara looks at Ethan, waiting for him to make an excuse about meetings or deadlines. Instead, he smiles, a real smile, not the polished one he uses for business deals. "I'd like that." They settle on the couch, Lucas between them, to watch his favorite animated film. As the opening credits roll, Clara feels something shift in the air. The tension hasn't disappeared entirely. There are still too many unresolved issues for that, but it's different now. Softer. Somehow. Lucas leans against her, his warmth familiar and comforting. On his other side, Ethan sits less rigidly than before, his expensive sweater collecting cat hair from the couch cushions. Clara catches his eye over Lucas's head, and for a moment they share a look of understanding. This won't be easy. They have years of hurt to untangle, trust to rebuild, and patterns to break. But watching Lucas's face light up at his favorite scenes, hearing Ethan's genuine laugh at the silly jokes, Clara feels a tiny spark of hope. Maybe they can't go back to what they were, but perhaps they can build something new, something that puts Lucas first and leaves room for healing. It won't happen overnight, and there will surely be more struggles ahead. But for now, in this moment, they're just a family watching a movie together. And maybe, Clara thinks, that's enough of a start. Clara brushes non-existent lint from her navy blazer, studying her reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back has changed since those early days after the divorce. Fewer shadows under her eyes, a steadiness in her gaze that wasn't there before. She straightens her shoulders, adjusting the delicate gold pendant that Lucas gave her for Mother's Day last year. The house creaks and settles around her, achingly quiet with Lucas at her mother's for the afternoon. Clara's fingers drift to her phone, checking the time again. 2 hours until Ethan arrives. 2 hours until they finally have the conversation they've been dancing around for weeks. Moving to her bedroom, Clara pulls the worn envelope from her desk drawer. The letter that started everything. The paper has softened at the creases, ink slightly faded where her tears had fallen as she wrote it. She hasn't read it since that New Year's Eve when she slipped it into the mailbox, but she remembers every word. Clara sinks onto the edge of her bed, sunlight streaming through the gauzy curtains. The weight of the past 6 years settles around her shoulders like a familiar shawl. She thinks about the woman she was then, terrified and alone, cradling a newborn Lucas while headlines trumpeted Ethan's rising success. She had convinced herself that keeping Lucas from Ethan was an act of protection. But now she sees it differently. The sound of a car door slamming outside makes her jump. Just the neighbors, she realizes, her heart racing. Clara moves to the window, watching Mrs. Chen unload groceries across the street. The same quiet suburban scene she's watched 1,000 times, yet today everything feels charged with possibility. Her phone buzzes, a text from Ethan. On my way. Traffic's light. Clara's fingers hover over the keyboard before she types a simple okay. She sets the phone down, trying to ignore how her hands shake. This isn't about rekindling what they had. This is about Lucas, about finding a way forward that gives their son the family he deserves, even if it looks different from what she once imagined. The letter sits on her dresser, a silent witness to how far they've come. Clara remembers the moment she decided to write it, sitting at her kitchen table while fireworks painted the sky. She had been so sure then that she was doing the right thing. Now, months later, she understands that right and wrong aren't always clear-cut when it comes to matters of the heart. Clara moves through the house, straightening already straight cushions, reorganizing Lucas's scattered toys. Her gaze catches on the empty space where their wedding photo used to sit. She had finally tucked it away last week, acknowledging that whatever comes next won't be found in those frozen smiles. The afternoon light slants through the windows, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors. Clara pauses in the kitchen, pouring herself a glass of water with hands that are steadier now. She's done running from the past. Whatever happens today, she'll face it with the strength she's built over these long years of single motherhood. She checks her phone again, 45 minutes until Ethan arrives. Clara takes a deep breath, remembering her therapist's words about staying grounded in the present moment. She is no longer that broken woman who fled from her marriage, nor is she the scared mother who hid her son from his father. She is someone new, someone stronger, wiser, ready to face whatever comes next. Clara moves to straighten the throw pillows one last time, her fingers lingering on the soft fabric. The quiet of the house wraps around her, holding this final moment of solitude before everything changes. The doorbell chimes, startling Clara from her thoughts. She glances at her phone. Ethan is 10 minutes early. Typical. Her heels click against the hardwood as she moves to answer, each step measured and deliberate. Ethan stands on her porch, his tailored suit a stark contrast to the casual suburban setting. He's traded his usual power tie for something softer, navy blue with subtle stripes. Their eyes meet, and for a moment, Clara sees a flash of the man she married, before the IPOs and board meetings hardened his edges. "Come in," she says, stepping aside. The scent of his cologne drifts past, different from what he wore during their marriage, but just as expensive. They settle in her living room, the space between them heavy with unspoken words. Sunlight streams through the windows, catching dust motes that dance in the air. Clara perches on the edge of the armchair while Ethan takes the couch, his posture rigid despite the casual setting. "I've been thinking," Ethan begins, his fingers drumming against his knee, an old tell she remembers from their courtship days. "About everything. About us. About Lucas." He meets her gaze. "I'm here, Clara. I'm trying, but I don't know if it's enough." Clara's throat tightens. "What do you mean?" "I mean." He runs a hand through his hair, mussing its perfect styling. "I can't go back to what we had. Neither can you. But maybe." He pauses, choosing his words carefully. "Maybe we can build something new, for Lucas." The words hang between them, fragile as spun glass. Clara studies his face, noting the new lines around his eyes, the slight gray at his temples that wasn't there 6 years ago. "Do you know what it was like?" Her voice comes out steadier than she expects. "Raising him alone, watching him grow, and knowing that every milestone, every first step and first word." She breaks off, swallowing hard. "You missed them all." "Because you didn't tell me about him," Ethan counters, an edge creeping into his voice. 6 years, Clara. 6 years I could have been there." "Would you have been?" She meets his gaze unflinchingly. "Really? Between the board meetings and the product launches and the endless travel," she gestures to the space around them. "This life, homework and skinned knees and bedtime stories, it's not exactly compatible with being a tech mogul." Ethan stands abruptly, pacing to the window. The afternoon light catches his profile, highlighting the tension in his jaw. "You didn't give me the chance to try." The truth of his words hits her like a physical blow. Clara rises, moving to stand near him but not too close. "You're right," she admits softly. "I didn't. I was scared and hurt and—" She draws a shaky breath. "I made the decision I thought was best for Lucas, but maybe I was wrong." He turns to face her, something shifting in his expression. "We can't change the past 6 years," he says quietly, "but we can choose what happens next." Clara nods, feeling the weight of the moment settle around them. "Lucas needs both of us," she says. "Not just me, not just you. Both of us, working together, even if—" She trails off, leaving the unspoken truth hanging between them. "Even if we can't be what we were," Ethan finishes. His voice is gentle now, touched with a sadness that echoes her own. "I understand that, Clara. I'm not asking for reconciliation. I'm asking for a chance to be his father." The words unlock something in Clara's chest, a knot of tension she's carried for so long she'd forgotten it was there. She moves to the mantel, picking up Lucas's latest school photo. "He has your smile," she says softly, "and your determination. The way he furrows his brow when he's concentrating, it's exactly like you." Ethan steps closer, studying the photo. Their shoulders nearly touch, and Clara catches herself remembering other moments like this, quiet evenings before success and ambition drove them apart. But that was another life, another version of themselves. "We need to tell him everything," Clara continues. "About us, about why you weren't there. He deserves the truth." Ethan nods slowly. "Together?" "Together." 3 weeks later, Clara stands in the back of Lucas's school auditorium watching their son present his science project. Ethan stands beside her, close enough that their arms brush occasionally but maintaining a careful distance. Lucas's voice carries clearly through the room as he explains his experiment on plant growth. "He's amazing," Ethan whispers, pride evident in his voice. Clara nods, throat tight with emotion. This is the first school event they've attended together, and the significance isn't lost on her. Lucas keeps glancing their way as he speaks, his smile growing brighter each time he sees them both there. After the presentation, Lucas bounds over to them, nearly knocking over a chair in his excitement. "Did you see? Did you see how my plants grew different in different types of soil?" "We saw, Mijo," Clara says, smoothing his wild hair. "You did wonderfully. Your methodology was very thorough," Ethan adds, and Lucas beams at the praise. They walk together to the parking lot, Lucas between them, chattering about his next experiment ideas. Clara catches Ethan's eye over their son's head, sharing a moment of quiet understanding. This is new territory for all of them, but they're navigating it together. Later that night, after Lucas is asleep, Clara sits on her back porch with a cup of tea. The evening air is cool against her skin, carrying the scent of her neighbor's jasmine. She thinks about how much has changed in the past few months, how the weight of secrets has lifted, replaced by something lighter, if more complicated. Her phone lights up with a text from Ethan confirming Lucas's pickup time for their weekend together. The easy coordination of co-parenting is still new, but it feels right. They're building something different from what they had before, not a romance rekindled, but a partnership focused on their son's happiness. Clara remembers the fear that used to grip her when she thought about telling Ethan the truth. Now, watching Lucas flourish with both parents in his life, she understands that sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most necessary growth. The following Sunday evening finds them all in Clara's living room. Lucas sprawls on the floor with his Legos, building an elaborate racetrack, while Ethan offers engineering suggestions from the armchair. Clara curls up on the couch with her sketch pad, working designs for a new client, but mostly watching her son and his father bond. The scene isn't perfect. There are still moments of awkwardness, still wounds that haven't fully healed. But there's peace here too, in the quiet understanding that family doesn't always look the way you expect it to. As the setting sun paints the room in shades of gold, Clara feels something settle in her heart. Not the passion of young love, but something steadier. A foundation built on truth, forgiveness, and the endless possibilities that come with new beginnings. Lucas holds up his completed racetrack triumphantly. "Look! It has jumps and everything!" "That's incredible, mijo," Clara says, while Ethan leans forward to examine the construction. In this moment, watching them together, Clara knows they've found their way to something real, something that might not match their original dreams. But that holds its own kind of beauty. It's not the ending she once imagined, but maybe she thinks it's exactly the ending they needed. Thank you so much for watching and listening to our story. Your time and support mean the world to us. If this video resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content. Your engagement helps us grow and continue sharing meaningful stories. See you in the next video.